If people do not feel your words, they will not follow your voice. That one truth changes everything about communication. Most people talk to be heard. Leaders talk to be remembered. The difference is not in volume. It is in precision, clarity, strength, and timing. If your voice is not respected, your ideas will not matter. If your words do not hold weight, your presence will not lead anyone. This audiobook is your guide to building a voice that commands respect without needing to shout. A voice that creates action without needing to impress. A voice that speaks to people's minds and moves their decisions. You do not need big words. You need strong ones. You do not need to talk more. You need to talk better. In this chapter-by-chapter breakdown, you will learn how to communicate like someone worth listening to. Real, practical, direct skills that you can apply immediately in everyday conversations, high-pressure moments, and leadership roles. This is for those who want to lead, not someday, but now. If your words do not bleed, nothing else will. It starts here. Chapter 1. Own every word you say with full confidence. That is where leadership begins. If you speak and your words do not carry weight, then you are just making noise, and noise does not move people. Noise does not change minds. Noise does not build trust. But when you speak with confidence, when you speak like every word matters, people notice, they listen, they lean in, and most importantly, they remember. Confidence does not mean being loud. It does not mean showing off. It means you stand behind your words. It means you believe what you are saying. And if you do not believe what you are saying, why should anyone else? Confidence starts when you stop second-guessing yourself and start taking full responsibility for every word that comes out of your mouth. Most people speak halfway. They are not sure. They throw out phrases like, I think, maybe, I guess, or I am not sure. And every time they do that, they weaken their message. They lose people. Because the truth is, nobody follows someone who sounds unsure. Nobody buys into a message that sounds shaky, and nobody gets inspired by someone who does not believe in their own voice. If you want to talk like a leader, you need to decide that your words matter. You need to mean what you say what you mean, and take full ownership of it. When you speak, people need to feel that you are serious. They need to feel that you are grounded, that what you are saying is not just talk, it is who you are. It is what you stand for. So, how do you do that? You start by paying attention to the words you use every day. Most people speak out of habit. They talk just to talk. But a leader speaks with intention. You do not waste your words. You do not ramble. You do not water things down. You speak straight. You speak real. And you speak with kind of presence that says, I have earned the right to be listened to. Now, confidence in your words also comes from preparation. If you do not know what you are talking about, your voice will shake, your message will fall apart. That is why leaders prepare. They think, they reflect, they get clear, so that when the time comes to speak, they are not making it up as they go. They've already done the work. They have already thought through what matters. And that is why their words carry power, because those words have already been tested in their own life. Confidence also grows when your words and your actions match. If you say one thing and do another, people will see through it, and eventually you will start doubting yourself too. You cannot talk like a leader if you are not living like one, because people listen more to your example than your explanations. They listen more to how you live than to what you say. When your behavior backs up your words, then you do not have to try so hard to sound confident. You become confident because you have earned it. And another thing, stop apologizing for your truth. Stop shrinking your message to make other people comfortable. Leaders do not speak to be liked. They speak to be clear. They speak to lead. If you are always worried about what people think, you will never say anything worth listening to. You do not have to be rude. You do not have to be aggressive, but you do have to be firm. You do have to be real, and that means you own your truth, even if not everyone agrees with it. When you walk into a room and speak, the room should feel it. Not because you are loud, but because you are solid, you are steady, and people can feel that you are not guessing your way through life. You have made decisions. You have built beliefs. You have tested ideas. And now you speak from experience, not just opinion. That is what gives your words weight. It also means you stop using soft language to protect your ego. Cut out the fillers. Cut out the uncertainty. If you believe in something, say it. If you stand for something, speak it. If something's not right, call it out. Too many people weaken their voice, trying to sound nice. But leadership is not about sounding nice. It is about speaking what matters, even when it is uncomfortable. Confidence in your words also comes from being okay with silence. Weak speakers, rushed, fill every pause. They are afraid of quiet, but strong communicators know that silence can be powerful. You say something important, then you pause. You give people time to hear it, to feel it, to let it land. You do not rush. You do not beg for approval. You say what needs to be said, and then you wait. And that silence speaks just as loudly as your words. Now, here is something you should always remember. Your voice is your tool, not your crutch. You do not talk to prove yourself. You do not speak to look smart. You speak to serve a purpose. You speak to lead people towards something better. And when you know that, your voice changes. Your tone shifts. You stop performing. You start leading, because now you are not talking to impress. You are talking to impact. Talking like a leader is not about using big words. It is not about having the perfect grammar. It is not about showing off your vocabulary. It is about being clear. It is about being certain. It is about being real. People follow that. People respond to that. Because in a world full of noise, real voices stand out. So if you want to talk like a leader, the first thing you have to do is this. Own every word you say. Stop outsourcing your voice. Stop outing your message. Speak with your chest. Speak from your gut. Speak like you mean it, and every time you do, your confidence grows, your presence grows, your leadership grows. Because once you own your words, you start owning your space. You show up differently. You carry yourself with a kind of quiet power. People can see it in your face. They can hear it in your tone. They can feel it in your presence. You no longer trying to sound like a leader. You are one, and that changes everything. Chapter 2. Speak clearly, so no one misunderstands your message. That is one of the most important habits you can develop if you want to lead people, influence them, or even just be taken seriously in your daily life. Clear speaking is not about being fancy. It is not about being complicated words. It is not about sounding impressive. It is about being understood. And when people understand you, they trust you. When they trust you, they listen. When they listen, things start to happen. But if people cannot understand what you are saying, then it does not matter how good your ideas are. It does not matter how smart you are. It does not matter how well-intentioned you are. If your words do not land, you lose the moment. You lose moment. You lose connection. You lose respect. And worst of all, people start filling in the blanks. They start guessing what you meant. And guess what? People rarely guess in your favor. That is why clarity is everything. If people do not hear you clearly, they will misunderstand you. And once your message gets lost, so does your influence. Talking like a leader means you take full responsibility for making your message clear. You do not dump information on people and expect them to figure it out. You think before you speak. You slow down. You strip away all the fluff. You stop trying to sound smart and focus on being understood. That's how strong communication begins. Most people never learn this. They talk fast. They ramble. They assume others know what they mean. They skip steps in their explanation. Then they wonder why people do not follow them, why people do not trust them, why their team is disorganized. The answer is simple. Unclear words create unclear minds. If people are confused after you speak, that is not their fault. It is yours. So what does clear speaking really look like? It starts with knowing what you want to say before you say it. If your thoughts are scattered, your words will be scattered. You have to think through your ideas. Be specific. Do not speak in vague terms. Say exactly what you mean. If you are asking someone to do something, say it in one straight line. Do not overcomplicate it. Do not try to sound impressive. Just be real and direct. Clarity also means cutting out all the extra words that water down your point. If you can say it in 5 words, do not use 15. If your message gets lost in too much talking, people tune out. They stop listening. They get overwhelmed. And once people stop listening, you lose their attention. Leaders do not waste tension. They get to the point, and they stay on point. Speaking clearly means using words that people actually understand. Do not try to sound intelligent by using technical language. Speak their language. Meet them where they are. If you are giving instructions to your team, explain it in a way that makes sense to them. If you are teaching someone something new, Break it down simply, not because they are not smart, but because your job is to connect, not confuse. One of the best things you can do to speak clearly is slow down. When you speak too fast, your words lose power. Your sentences run together. People miss key parts. Slowing down shows control. It shows thoughtfulness, and it gives people time to process what you're saying. Fast talking often comes from insecurity. People think they need to rush through their ideas to sound sharp. But leaders do not rush. They pause. They let their words settle. That pause makes people lean in. That pause adds weight to your message. You also need to be aware of your tone. Your tone carries meaning that your words alone cannot. You can say the right words with the wrong tone, and people will still take it the wrong way. Or you can say something simple with a strong tone. It will hit hard. Tone is your attitude made audible. If your tone is all over the place, too flat, too angry, too unsure, your message loses clarity. People will not know what to take seriously and what to ignore. That's why you train your tone to match your message. If you're serious, sound serious. If you're excited, sound excited. Do not send mixed signals. Another reason people fail to speak clearly is they get caught up trying to say everything at once. You do not need to tell the whole story in one breath. You do not need to explain every single detail all at once. Pick your main point and build around it. Stick to one idea at a time. Make it easy for people to follow. Give them time to absorb what you are saying. Simplicity is not weakness, it is strength. If you can explain a big idea in a small number of words, that is leadership. Sometimes speaking clearly means repeating your main point once. The minimum discipline is repeating the same main point not 5 times, just once. And not because you are unsure, but because people need time to grasp what matters. You say it clearly, you pause, you say it again with certainty. Then you move forward, not in circles, not in loops, straight ahead. You also need to pay attention to how people react when you talk. Watch their eyes, watch their face. Are they confused? Are they distracted? Are they locked in? Your words should pull people in. If they are pulling away, adjust. Real leaders pay attention to feedback in real time. They clarify when needed. They ask, does that make sense? Not as filler, but as a genuine check. And if the answer is no, they do not defend. They explain again in a better way. And here is something most people overlook: your body language. Your message is not just your words. It is your posture. It is your face. It is your hands. It is your presence. If your words say one thing and your body says something else, people will believe your body. That means standing up straight. That means facing the person. That means showing that you are present, not distracted. It all adds to your clarity. Clear speaking is also built through practice. You do not wait for the big moments to develop this skill. You train it daily. You practice it in regular conversations. You work on getting to the point. You work on using better words. You work on asking better questions. You improve how you explain your ideas. That is how leaders sharpen their message. Not just through big speeches, but through everyday conversations done right. Clarity is earned. It is a skill. It is a decision. Every time you open your mouth, you have the opportunity to build trust or break it. You have the chance to guide people or confuse them. And you have the responsibility to speak in a way that makes your message easy to understand. So, stop hiding behind complicated language. Stop hoping people will figure out what you meant. Stop rushing your words, hoping they land. Make a new decision today. When you speak, you will speak clearly. You will speak with purpose. You will speak so nobody leaves confused about who you are and what you stand for. Speak like your words matter, because they do. Speak like someone who knows where they are going. Speak like someone who has done the work and earned the right to be heard. That is how a leader talks. That is how a leader connects. That is how a leader builds something real. And that is the kind of person people choose to follow. Someone who makes their message clear every single time. Chapter 3. Control your voice before you try to lead. That is not a suggestion. It is a requirement, because your voice is more than sound. It is your presence. It is your attitude. It is your energy. And if your voice is not steady, your leadership will never be trusted. You can have the best intentions, a brilliant mind, strong values, but if your voice shakes, if it wavers, if it sounds unsure or scattered, people will hesitate to follow you. Why? Because people do not just listen to what you say, they listen to how you say it. You see, leadership starts with how you carry yourself, and your voice starts with laughter. If you are nervous, people hear it. If you are angry, people hear it. If you are unsure, people hear it. You cannot hide that. And the more emotional noise lives inside you, the harder it becomes to speak with strength and direction. That is why, before you step into a leadership role, before you try to influence anyone, you have to learn to control your own tone, your volume, your rhythm, and your emotional state. A leader does not just talk, they command attention, and not by being loud, not by talking over others, but by using a steady, calm, grounded voice that tells people, I am not here to impress you. I am here to guide you. That is the difference. When your voice is under control, people feel safe around you. They feel like you are not going to snap. You're not going to panic. You're not going to spin off into emotion. You are steady. And that steadiness creates trust. You cannot lead if your voice is shaking every time you speak up. You cannot lead if your tone changes with your mood. People get tired of following voices they cannot predict. That unpredictability creates anxiety, and leadership is not about making people feel anxious. It is about giving them direction they can count on. So, how do you control your voice? You begin by becoming aware of it. Most people do not even notice how they sound. They have never listened to their tone. They have never recorded themselves. They do not know if they speak too fast, too soft, too harsh, or too flat. That is the first step, self-awareness. Take the time to really hear yourself. Are you clear? Are you firm? Do you sound like someone who believes what they are saying? Or do you sound like someone who believes what they are saying? Or do you sound like someone who believes what they are saying? The more you know how you sound, the more you can take control of it. You start choosing your tone instead of letting your emotions choose it for you. If you are frustrated, you do not raise your voice. You stay calm and address the issue directly. If you are excited, you do not speed up and lose people. You hold the energy, but stay steady. Leadership demands that you show emotional control, and your voice is where people see it first. Another way to gain control is through breathing. Most people underestimate how important breathing is when you speak. Shallow breathing leads to fast talking, nervous energy, and shaky delivery. But when you slow your breath down, your voice naturally becomes stronger and deeper. You do not have to push it. It settles. It becomes deliberate, and people sense that control. Before every important conversation, every meeting, every decision, you center yourself. You breathe. You slow everything down internally, and then you speak. Control also means knowing when not to speak. A powerful voice is not just about what you say, it is about what you hold back. If you speak out of impulse, you will say things you regret. You will create damage that takes a long time to repair. But if you train yourself to pause, to think, to listen, you will speak fewer words, but they will carry more weight. And that is what leadership communication is all about. Fewer words, more meaning. Think about the leaders you respect most. They did not rush through their words. They did not fumble. They did not ramble on. They spoke with purpose. Every sentence had a job to do. Every word carried meaning. They were not trying to sound important. They were grounded. That is what gave their voice authority. And that kind of authority does not come from titles. It does not come from volume. It comes from inner strength. It comes from discipline, and that discipline must be developed. You practice your voice like any other skill. You train it. You rehearse not to fake it, but to refine it. If you speak in public, practice it beforehand. Listen to yourself. Adjust. If you are leading a team, do not just speak off the top of your head. Prepare your tone, your delivery, your pacing. Strong leaders do not rely on chance when it comes to communication. They take it seriously because they know every word, every tone, every pause can either build or break what they are trying to lead. Also understand that your voice is not just used in big moments. It matters in small conversations, in one-on-ones, in giving feedback, in dealing with conflict. Every moment you speak, people are watching. They are asking themselves, can I trust this person? Do they mean what they say? Are they in control or are they unstable? That trust is built or destroyed based on how well you have mastered your tone, your message, your energy. And energy is everything. If your voice lacks energy, people will not feel your words. You cannot motivate people with a dead tone. You cannot inspire with flat delivery. You do not need to be loud, but you do need to be alive. Your voice needs to carry belief. It needs to show that you care. You need to be fully present in your words. Otherwise, it does not matter how good your ideas are. They will fall flat. Leadership also means managing your emotional triggers. When things go wrong, when people push your buttons, when situations get intense, you must be able to hold your ground without your voice cracking. or rising. If your voice changes every time you are under pressure, people lose trust in your stability. They may respect your knowledge, but they will hesitate to follow you when it counts. Control means staying calm, even when things are falling apart. That calmness is what people remember. It is what helps others stay steady too. When your voice is trained, your leadership becomes sharper. You speak with focus. You lead with presence. You guide with strength, and people feel it. They know they are in the presence of someone who is not just talking to be heard. They are talking because they have something worth hearing. So take your voice seriously, not for performance, but for influence. Train it daily. Reflect on it. Record yourself. Ask for honest feedback. Adjust your tone until it reflects strength and clarity. Practice speaking under pressure. Practice holding your ground without shouting. Build the kind of voice that calms people, moves people, and earns respect without ever needing to demand it. Because before anyone will follow you, they will first listen to you. And before they listen to you, they will judge your voice. Not your accent, not your vocabulary, but the presence, the energy, and the control behind it. When your voice reflects discipline, purpose, and steadiness, people feel safe. They feel confident, and they begin to trust your leadership. Not because you told them to, but because your voice proved it. That is how you lead. That is where leadership begins. Before you ask others to follow, make sure your voice is ready to guide. Not sometimes, not when you feel like it. Every time, in every room, in every moment. Because once your voice is steady, your leadership starts to become real. Chapter 4. Say things that actually move people to act. That is what leadership communication is really about. It is not just about talking. It is not about sounding smart. It is about speaking in a way that creates movement. A leader's words do not just fill time. They change minds. They wake people up. They make someone stop what they are doing and think differently. They make someone take a step they have been avoiding. When you speak as a leader, your words need to have power, not emotional hype, but practical push. Your words should lead to action. Otherwise, you are just another voice in the background. People hear a lot every day. They are flooded with opinions, distractions, instructions, advice, but most of it does not move them. It passes through and disappears. What they remember is what made them feel something strong enough to shift them out of comfort and into motion. And that is your job, to say things that wake people up without shouting, to speak in a way that reaches not just their ears, but their core. That kind of speaking does not come from memorizing lines. It comes from knowing why you are saying what you are saying. It comes from clarity, from intention, from experience. Before you try to influence others, check your motive. Are you trying to impress or impact? You're just repeating what you have heard. Or are you speaking from a place that has been tested in real life? People can tell when your words are just information versus when your words are real. Real words carry pressure. They carry weight. They do not float. They land. And when they land, people move. If you want to move people, speak directly to their pain. Speak to the part of them that is tired of excuses. Speak to the frustration they carry, but never say out loud. Speak to the decision they have been delaying. You do not need to say it perfectly. You just need to say it truthfully. The truth hits. The truth stings. but it also frees. People are surrounded by soft talk. Everyone's telling them to take it easy, to wait for the right time, to avoid discomfort. That is not what they need from a leader. They need someone to say, "You have waited long enough. You have been hiding. You have been settling," not with judgment, but with clarity. When someone says what needs to be said, people wake up, and you do not move people by over-explaining. Say it once, say it clearly, say it with strength, and let it sit. If you drag your point through 5 examples, you lose the spark. The message gets buried. Say it short, sharp, and straight. And once it is said, do not water it down. People need clarity, not comfort. They need something to hold on to, not something to overthink. If you want them to act, give them something clean and firm. People do not act on vague ideas. They act on solid direction. And another key is urgency. People do not move without urgency. Your words should carry a sense that something must be done now, not in 6 months, not when life feels better. Now, not with panic, but with pressure. You need to show them what is at stake. If they do not move, what happens? If they stay the same, what do they lose? If they keep waiting, what will it cost them? That is how you trigger action, not with fear, but with truth. The truth that staying where you are is often most dangerous decision. And speak in language they understand. Use words they use. If your message sounds too polished, people tune out. They think it is not for them. But if it sounds like it came from someone who has walked where they are walking, who has fought or they are fighting, they will listen. You do not need perfect grammar or clever sentences. You need to sound real. You need to sound like someone who means what they say and says what they mean. It is not just what you say, it is how much you mean it. If you do not believe your own message, nobody else will. Your tone carries your belief. If you are giving advice you do not live, people will sense it. If you are telling people to be disciplined while living undisciplined, your words lose power. But if your words come from your personal standard, they hit hard. That is why your life must match your message. When it does, your words gain strength without needing volume. People are not looking for motivation. They are looking for permission to change. They want to know it is okay to leave what is familiar. They want to hear that they are allowed to demand more of themselves. And your words can unlock that. Your words can pull the switch, but only if they are direct, real, and aimed at action. Do not talk around the issue. Do not sugarcoat it. Say what they need to hear, and then challenge them to do something with it. Sometimes what moves people is not inspiration, it is confrontation. You say something that they have been avoiding. You hold up a mirror. You call it out, not with anger, but with honesty. That moment of discomfort becomes the turning point. Many people are waiting for someone to call them higher, not by yelling, not by guilt, but by saying, "You are capable of more, and it is time to act like it." That line, if said right, can shift someone's life. And do not fall into the trap of trying to say what is popular. Say what is needed. Leaders do not chase applause. They chase progress. The room might not cheer. That is fine. They will think about it. They will sit with it. And if it is real, they will move. You are not trying to entertain. You are trying to build something. So speak like someone who takes responsibility for the effect of their words. And never forget, silence can be just as powerful. If your words are strong, you do not need to say much. One sentence followed by silence can do more than a 5-minute lecture. It gives the message room to breathe. It gives people space to respond internally. If your words are filled with truth, do not rush to keep talking. Let it land. Let it echo. You also move people by making things simple. Complexity creates hesitation. But when you break something down into a clear next step, people feel ready. Say it like this. Start today. Make the call. Write it down. Fix it now. Do not leave them guessing. Move them from thought to decision, from idea to action, from good intentions to actual change. And remember, you do not need to say more. You need to say it better. Do not crowd your message. Do not soften your edges. Speak to the real issue. Say the words people are afraid to say. Call out the habits that keep them stuck. Say what others will not. That is how a leader speaks. That is how a leader moves people. Because when your words carry truth, urgency, and direction, when your voice is calm, controlled, and certain, when your message is focused on what matters most, then people stop scrolling, stop waiting, and start moving. They stop living in delay and start living on purpose. Speak in a way that matters. Speak to the part of people that is hungry for more. Speak with enough pressure to wake them up and enough clarity to show them where to go next. That is how you lead. That is how you lead. That is how you lead. That is how you move people. Not with noise, but with words that carry weight. And those words must come from a place inside you that is already moved. Because what moves you is what will move others. Speak from that place. Speak from your standards. Speak from your scars. Speak from what you have learned the hard way. That is what makes your voice different. That is what makes your message matter. That is what makes people act. Chapter 5. Use strong words that build respect and attention. That is a skill most never take seriously, but every leader must master. People do not follow voices that are weak, unsure, or filled with fluff. They follow voices that speak with substance. And strong words do not mean harsh words. They mean words that hold meaning, words that carry weight, and words that show you have earned the right to be heard. Every time you speak, you are either building credibility or losing it. You are either gaining attention or being ignored. It all comes down to your word choice. Weak words are forgettable. Strong words are remembered. To talk like a leader, you have to understand the impact your words make, not just the meaning, but the tone, the presence, the power behind them. Strong words demand attention, not because they are loud, but because they are precise. When you speak with clear, strong language, people stop and listen. They sense you are serious. They feel your confidence. You do not have to repeat yourself. You do not have to over-explain. One sentence spoken with power and clarity can change the direction of a conversation, and in some cases, a life. Weak language creates doubt. When you use phrases like, I think, maybe, I guess, or sort of, you dilute your message, you strip it of strength, and people stop listening. Strong words are clean. They are direct. They do not leave space for confusion. They show you have made a decision. You are not offering a suggestion. You are making a statement. And when people hear that kind of certainty, they are more likely to respect your voice. If you are always trying to be soft, trying not to offend, trying to please everyone, you will end up saying nothing that matters. People respect clarity. They follow someone who speaks the truth, even if it is uncomfortable, especially when it is uncomfortable. Strong words are not about being aggressive. They're about being unshakable. You do not raise your voice. You raise your standard. That is what makes people pay attention. Your choice of words reflects your standards. If you have settled for average in your thinking, your words will sound average. But if you have demanded more from yourself, your words will reflect that. Strong words come from a strong mindset. When your thinking is clear, your language becomes powerful. If you speak with strength, it is because you have built strength inside. You have dealt with pressure. You have faced challenges. You have earned your voice. People do not just want to hear information. They want to hear belief. They want to feel conviction. If your words are filled with doubt, you lose them. But when you speak from your core, when you say things you have lived, people lock in because they can feel the difference between talk and truth. Talk is easy. Truth takes discipline. And when your words are based on truth, people cannot ignore you. Using strong words also means eliminating all the filler, up the phrases that do nothing. You know, kind of. It is like those weaken your impact. They create noise. And leadership is not about noise. It is about precision. One clear sentence delivered without hesitation is more powerful than a 10-minute speech filled with filler. Say less, but say it better. To gain respect, when you speak, you have to respect your own words. That means you do not talk just to talk. You do not speak when you have not thought. Every sentence has a purpose. Every word has intention. That is how people begin to respect you, not just because of what you say, but because of how carefully you say it. Attention is earned. It is not automatic. And it is not about being flashy. It is about being solid. Your words should be like anchors. When you say something, it stays. People carry it with them. They think about it later. Because it was not just a sound. It was a statement. If your words fade as soon as they are heard, you are not leading. You are blending in. The language of leadership is bold, not reckless. It is confident, not arrogant, and it is always clear. Clarity is power. If someone has to ask, "What did you mean by that?" you have already lost them. People follow voices that are easy to understand, but hard to ignore. That is the balance. Simplicity and strength combined. No fluff, no ego, just truth, delivered directly. There is also something else you need to know. Strong words must be earned. You cannot fake them. If your life does not match your message, your words will feel empty. That is why personal discipline matters. That is why living with standards matters, because your voice gains power from your example. When you have lived what you speak, you do not have to convince people. They feel it, they hear it, it is different. You build attention when your words bring value. Every time you speak, ask yourself, is this helping someone think better, act better, live better? If the answer is no, do not say it. Save your energy for what matters. Leaders do not speak to fill time. They speak to shift something. And when your words consistently deliver value, people make space for you. They stop scrolling. They stop moving. They listen. Strong words are also honest, not cruel, but honest. You say the thing that needs to be said. You do not hide behind comfort. You do not dress it up. You tell the truth clearly and directly. Most people avoid this. They speak in circles. They soften everything. But when you talk like a leader, you speak with boldness. You say, this is not working. 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 That kind of clarity builds respect. Not everyone will like it, but they will remember it. And when people remember your words, you become a voice of influence. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. You spoke with focus, with courage, with precision. That is what sets leaders apart. They do not speak more, they speak stronger. And that strength does not come from shouting. It comes from self-control, from thought, from responsibility. Every room you enter is full of voices, most of them blurred together. But when someone speaks with weight, with depth, with clarity, everyone turns. That is your goal, not to be the loudest, but to be the one people stop for, because what you say carries something real. That is leadership, and leadership starts with how you talk to yourself. If your internal voice is weak, your outer voice will be weak too. Speak strong inside first. No more self-doubt. No more playing small. You train your mind to think with strength, and your words will follow. You say, I can do this. I will make it better. I refuse to stay average. When you talk to yourself with strength, you begin to talk to the world the same way. So, choose your words with care. Speak with conviction. Speak with strength. Cut out the soft language that wastes people's time. Speak to be clear, not liked. Speak to make an impact, not just fill silence. Speak from experience, not theory. When your words are strong, people feel it. They listen longer, they trust more, and they remember. That is how respect is built. That is how attention is earned. Not through noise, but through strong, clear, real words that speak directly to what matters. You do not need a crowd. You do not need approval. You need discipline. You need belief. And you need the courage to speak as someone who means every word. That is what leadership sounds like. And that is what people will follow. Not just words, but words that lead. Drop the weak talk and speak with real strength. That is the moment everything changes, not just in your communication, but in your life. Because way you speak reveals how you think, and how you think shapes everything. Weak talk is more than soft words. It is the habit of speaking from hesitation, from fear, from insecurity. And the longer you speak that way, the more it shapes who you are. It becomes part of your identity. But when you decide to stop using that kind of language, and you choose to speak with real strength, you do not just sound different, you become different. You become sharper, more certain, more respected. People know when your voice carries strength. They feel it, not because you raise your volume, but because your words have a backbone. There is a quiet authority in your tone. There is intention in your delivery. There is power in your message. And that only happens when you stop diluting your speech with phrases that drain your credibility. You hear weak talk every day. I am not sure, but hopefully it works out. This might sound dumb, but these phrases slip into conversation, and every time they do, they send a message. I do not fully believe in what I am saying. You may not mean to say that, but that is exactly what people hear. Weak talk undercuts your message before it even lands. It shows doubt. It creates distance. It softens your edge. And if you are trying to lead, trying to influence, trying to earn trust, those words will cost you everything. Real strength in your voice begins with eliminating the words that waste your power. You do not need to explain yourself to everyone. You do not need to shrink your opinion to avoid discomfort. You do not need to sound small to be liked. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be clear, to be strong, to be solid. And that starts dropping every phrase that gives people permission to ignore you. You do not need to say, I just think. You think it, say it. Do not lead with sorry, but you are not sorry for having a point. And you do not need to ask for permission with every sentence. When you speak with strength, your words stand on their own. You are not pushing them. You are not begging for attention. You're simply saying something real with no apology, no hesitation, no confusion. Strength does not mean aggression. You do not need to be harsh to be powerful. You do not need to dominate the room. Real strength is calm. It is controlled. It is steady. It is you speaking from a place of certainty because you know who you are and you know what you are saying matters. You have thought about it. You have earned it. You are not performing. You are delivering something that has value. When you speak with strength, people respect you differently. They do not interrupt you as much. They do not question you the same way. They listen longer because strong words hold attention. And attention is currency. It is not given, it is earned. Weak talk loses attention. Strong talk earns it. And once you have someone's full attention, that is when you make impact. If you want to lead, you have to decide what kind of voice you are going to use. Not the sound, the tone, the structure, the meaning. Will it be padded with disclaimers, softeners, fillers, or will it be sharp, intentional, and exact? The truth is, nobody's going to fix this for you. If you have grown up around weak talk, If you've worked in environments full of people who avoid saying things directly, you might have picked up those habits, but habits can be unlearned. And this is one habit worth changing. Strong speech starts with internal conviction. If you do not believe in what you are saying, no one else will. So, build your beliefs, think deeply, challenge your own ideas. Once you have done the work internally, you will stop needing to defend yourself so much externally. You will not need to sound loud. You will just need to sound clear. And clarity is a powerful form of strength. People who use weak talk often fall invisible. They feel unheard. But it is not always the world ignoring them. It is the way they present their voice. You train people how to treat your message. If you treat it like it is unsure, optional, vague, they will too. But when you speak with clarity and strength, people pause. They think, they take notice, and your presence grows. There is also a time factor. Wooked orc wastes time. You ramble. You go in circles. You add 3 extra sentences when one would do. Strong speech is efficient. It gets to the point. It respects people's time. That is another way strength shows up, in how little you need to say to get your message across. When you stop trying to impress and just focus on the truth, your voice becomes cleaner and cleaner. Voices move faster through the noise. You will also feel different when you stop using weak talk. There is a shift in your posture, in your energy, in how you enter a room, because you are no longer second-guessing yourself while you speak. You are not editing every sentence in real time. You are not bracing for judgment. You are delivering something solid, and you know it. That gives you freedom, and that freedom turns it to confidence. Weak talk comes from fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of being disliked. But here is the truth. If you try to speak in a way that never offends, never challenges, never demands, then your words will never be taken seriously. And if your words are not taken seriously, you will never feed. So you have to decide, do you want to be liked? Or do you want to be liked? Or do you want to be effective? You cannot do both. Not always. Leadership is not about comfort. It is about accurate. It is about moving things forward, and that requires strength in how you communicate. It means you drop the soft padding and say the thing that needs to be said. You do not do it carelessly. You do it with discipline, with focus, with purpose. You do not use strength to push people down. You use it to lift them. But lifting does not mean being gentle with everything. Sometimes strength sounds like challenge. Sometimes it sounds like correction. Sometimes it sounds like that is not acceptable. And sometimes it is just silence, holding your ground when others want you to fold. All of that is communication. And all of it comes from dropping the weak habits that dilute your presence. Do not wait for a perfect moment to start speaking stronger. Practice in your daily conversations. Cut out one soft phrase at a time. Replace I hope, will, I will. Replace I guess with I have decided. Replace it might be with here is what I see. These small changes add up. They rewire your voice. And before long, your entire presence shifts. People notice, you notice, and you begin to operate at a higher level. You do not need to shout. You do not need to argue. You do not need to win every conversation. You just need to show up with words that have backbone, that show you have thought through what you are saying, that show you are not afraid of pushback. And when people hear that, they stop testing you. They start respecting you. That is how strength speaks. Calm, clear, controlled, unshaken. You do not speak for approval. You speak because you have something real to say. And the more you speak that way, the more your leadership takes root. Not because you talk the most, but because when you talk, people know it matters. So drop the weak talk. Cut the noise. Cut the fluff. Speak with precision. Speak from your values. Speak with steady confidence, and do it every time until it is no longer something you try to do. It is who you are. That is leadership, and it starts with your voice. Chapter 7. Hold your ground when others try to shake you. That is what separates real leaders from the ones who fold under pressure. Anyone can speak with strength when no one is pushing back. Anyone can sound confident when everything's calm. But the real test is when your beliefs, your words, your decisions are challenged. That is when your presence gets tested. That is when you find out what your voice is really made of. The world does not give you silence. It gives you resistance. And your ability to lead depends on how well you stay solid. When that resistance shows up, most people crack as soon as they feel discomfort. The moment someone disagrees, they backpedal. They start to soften their words. They explain themselves too much. They try to get approval, and in doing that, they lose the strength in their voice. Leadership is not about getting people to agree with you. It is about standing in your truth, even when they do not. You do not speak to be popular. You speak because what you have to say matters. And if it matters, you do not let pressure change it. People will test you. That is guaranteed. They will question your tone. They will challenge your decisions. They will twist your message. And you have a choice. Stay planted in your clarity, or get dragged into their doubt. If you get shaken every time someone questions you, you will not last long in leadership. You will end up becoming whatever people want you to be. But that is not leadership. That is insecurity in disguise. To hold your ground, you have to know what you stand for. If you have not thought that through, pressure will expose you. Clarity gives you stability. If you have done the work to define your values, your message, your direction, then when the pressure comes, you do not panic, you do not scramble, you do not change your language to fit the crowd. You stay anchored in what you have built inside. You cannot borrow strength in those moments. You cannot copy someone else's confidence. It has to be yours. Built from repetition, built from experience, built from speaking when it is hard. That kind of strength does not show up automatically. You train it, you develop it. Every time you stay calm when someone pushes back, you reinforce that inner strength. Every time you stand firm in what you believe, you grow stronger, not louder, stronger. That is the key. Leaders do not yell to prove they are solid. They speak with calm certainty. That tone cuts through the noise better than any argument. People respect what does not flinch. If you change your tone every time the room shifts, people stop trusting you. They may smile at you. They may agree with you to your face, but inside, they know they cannot rely on you. Respect is earned when your message holds steady under pressure, when you say the same thing when it is uncomfortable that you said when it was easy, when your face does not change just because someone's raising their voice. To lead well, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. You have to be willing to be the one in the room who does not bend or when everyone else is looking for a way out. Does not mean you are stubborn. It means you are steady. It means you have thought things through. It means you do not need every person in the room to agree with you before you speak with strength. There will be moments where your voice shakes a little. That is normal. You are human, but you still speak. You still hold your position. You still stay rooted in your truth. You do not run from the tension. You meet it head on. You show others that disagreement does not scare you, that challenge does not throw you off, that someone else's doubt will not make you question yourself. That is how leadership becomes visible. Not when you say something inspiring, but when you stay strong, when someone tries to push you off center, and the ones who try to shake you are not always loud. Sometimes they are subtle. A raised eyebrow, a smirk, a dismissive look, a sharp question designed to trip you up. You do not respond with emotion. You do not overreact. You stay even. You hold your tone. You stay respectful, but you do not move. You do not need to attack to protect your position. You just stay rooted. Because when your voice is built on truth and discipline, it does not need defending. It stands on its own. You will feel it when someone's trying to shake your ground. The energy shifts. The room tightens. That is the moment most people start shrinking. But that is your opportunity to rise, not with louder words, but with more grounded energy. People notice when someone speaks and does not flinch. When someone stands their ground without being defensive. When someone keeps their message clear, even when the pressure is high. That is the kind of communication people follow. Not because it is perfect, but because it is solid. Real strength in communication is not found in what you say when people agree with you. It is found in how you speak when they do not. When you stay grounded, you teach people something. They learn that you are not shaken easily. They learn that your words are not based on trends, emotions, or reactions. They learn that when you speak, there is weight behind it, and people follow that kind of presence. Not hype, not popularity, but presence. Something real that does not move every time the room does. You do not need to explain yourself to everyone. Some people want to argue, not understand. Some want to provoke, not discuss. That is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to stay rooted in what matters. You do not chase approval. You do not beg for support. You deliver your message with strength and let the chips fall where they may. There is a quiet kind of power in holding your ground. You do not have to say a lot. You do not have to justify everything. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm and not change a single word. That silence says more than 100 explanations. That steadiness communicates more than emotion ever could. And when you do this often, when you get in the habit of staying strong through disagreement, you start to become unshakable, not arrogant, not dismissive, just rooted, grounded, present. That is what gives your leadership voice its edge, not volume, but conviction, not emotion, but clarity, not control, but consistency. The world is full of noise, people trying to sound important, people talking over each other, people reacting. What stands out is someone who speaks and holds the line, someone who knows what they are about, someone who does not get rattled every time someone disagrees. That person becomes a voice of trust, a voice of clarity, a voice people return to, not because they always say what others want to hear, but because they always say what is real. You will not always get applause. That is not the goal. The goal is respect. The goal is impact. The goal is strength. So, the next time someone tries to shake you, do not let it work. Do not adjust your voice to match their emotion. Do not speed up. Do not shrink. Hold your tone. Hold your pace. Hold your clarity. Hold your ground. That is how trust is built. That is how presence is established. That is how real leaders are recognized. Not by how they speak when it is easy, but by how they stay strong when it is not. You hold your ground, and people start to believe in you, not just your words, but you. And once they believe in that, you do not just become someone who talks, you become someone who leads. End chapter 8. Make your point without dragging or over-explaining it. That is a habit every strong communicator must develop, because in leadership, your value is not measured by how much you say, but by how well you say it. You do not need long speeches to sound credible. You do not need to keep repeating yourself to be clear. You do not need to add unnecessary examples to make sure people understand you. When you speak with clarity, one sentence is enough. When your thoughts are organized, you do not ramble. And when your presence is strong, you do not rely on volume or length. You rely on precision. People do not have unlimited attention. In fact, most are distracted before you even open your mouth. So when you speak, you are competing with their inner dialogue, their phone, their worries, and everything else pulling at their focus. If you drag your message out, if you keep circling the point, they start to check out. And when they check out, you lose influence. Not because your idea is not good, but because it got lost in too many words. There is a big difference between being thoughtful and being long-winded. Thoughtful is direct, it is clear, it is structured. Long-winded is messy, it is slow, it is uncertain. The more words you use, the more chances you have to weaken your message. Every extra sentence adds a layer that might confuse the listener. That is why all communicators trim the excess. They say what matters, they stop talking, and they let the message land. Over-explaining is often a symptom of doubt. When people are not sure of their message, they keep adding to it. They try to protect it with more details. They try to control how others receive it. But leadership does not work that way. You cannot control how people feel. You can only control how you deliver. And if you deliver with confidence and clarity, you do not need backup explanation. You say it. You trust it. You let it speak for itself. Another reason people over-explain is because they fear being misunderstood. They think more words will make things safer. But more words do not always equal more understanding. Sometimes they make things worse. When you say too much, your main idea gets buried. Your listener starts picking up on side comments. They miss the purpose, and then you have created confusion where there could have been clarity. Leadership communication is about clarity, not control. Say the truth and let it stand on its own. If you want to be listened to consistently, you need to become someone who does not waste time, not your time, and not anyone else's. People should know when you speak, they are going to get value. They are going to hear something that matters. They are going to walk away with a clear understanding. That only happens when you discipline yourself to get to the point and stay on it. No detours, no fluff, no verbal padding, just the truth, delivered with strength. Getting to the point does not mean being cold. It does not mean being harsh. It means you care enough about people's time to be efficient with your words. It means you have taken the time to think through what needs to be said and what does not. It means you are not speaking to fill space. You are speaking to create movement. You also build respect by being concise. When you make your point and stop talking, people lean in. They take notice. Because they are used to people going on and on. They are used to hearing vague ideas stretched out for no reason. When someone speaks and finishes in a sharp, clean way, it feels different. And that difference earns attention. There is also strength in being brief. The more certain you are, the less you need to say. If you are secure in your message, you do not need to pile on words. You deliver it and stand behind it. The power comes from the simplicity and the discipline to say just enough, not too much. That takes work. It takes practice, but it is worth it because the ones who master that skill become the voices people turn to when clarity is needed most. You should never feel the need to convince everyone. That is where most over-explaining comes from, the need to be accepted. But leadership is not about trying to be accepted. It is about delivering what is necessary. Some will agree, some will not. That is fine. You do not need everyone to approve of your message. You need the right people to understand it, and that only happens when you do not dilute it with extra layers. When you speak, ask yourself, what is the purpose of this sentence? If it does not move the message forward, drop it. If it is only there to soften the blow, rethink it. If it is trying to protect your ego, replace it. Speak with intent, with clarity, with courage. That is what people want to hear. Not a safe version of your truth. The real thing spoken clearly and briefly. Every time you speak, you are training people how to listen to you. If you ramble, they will tune out. If you are sharp, they will lean in. If you repeat yourself unnecessarily, they will assume you do not trust them to understand. But if you say something powerful once and stop talking, they will think about it. They will respect you more, and they will listen more closely the next time. Do not confuse clarity with simplicity. You can be clear and still speak deeply. You can say something profound in a short sentence. In fact, the more important your point, the more pressure there is to make it clean, because complexity hides the impact, simplicity reveals it. Think about the strongest voices you have ever heard, the ones who moved you. They did not give 10 examples. They did not talk in circles. They made a clear point with calm strength, and they stopped. That pause after a strong statement creates space for the message to settle. It lets the listener reflect. That is where impact happens. Not while you are still talking, but in the space you leave after. You also need to understand your audience. If you speak to people who already understand the topic, do not overteach. Do not explain what they already know. Respect their intelligence. Speak to the next level. If you speak to those unfamiliar with your topic, then explain only what they need, not everything you know. Do not overload them, guide them. Real communications is not about saying everything. It is about saying the right thing at the right time, in the right way. That means trimming, cutting, sharpening. Before you speak, clarify your point in your mind. Know where you are going before you open your mouth. That internal clarity translates to external confidence. And that is what makes your message land. There is no prize for speaking the longest. There is no award for using the most words. The reward comes from being understood, from making impact, from helping someone think better, move faster, decide sooner. And that happens when you deliver your point with strength and discipline, when you strip away the extras and trust your message to do its job. If your message is true, it does not need extra decoration. It does not need backup explanations. It does not need endless support. It needs clarity. It needs belief. And it needs you to stop talking once you have said it. Speak to move. Speak to guide. Speak with strength. Say what matters. Then stop. Let the silence do the rest. That is how leaders speak. That is how voices grow. That is how influence is built. Not through long speeches, but through words that mean something, spoken clearly and left to echo in the minds of others. Chapter 9. Speak to be remembered, not just to be heard. That is where real influence begins. Talking is easy. Everybody talks. The world is full of voices, noise, and endless conversations. But being remembered, that is different. That takes purpose. That takes intention. That takes discipline. People hear thousands of words a day, but only a few stay with them. The ones that stay are the ones that meant something. The ones that were clear, direct, and delivered with weight. And you talk like a leader. You do not just want to fill the air. You want to leave a mark. You want your words to stay with people long after you have left the room. To be remembered, you have to say something worth remembering. That means cutting out the shallow talk. Do not speak just to react. Do not speak just to show off what you know. Speak because you have got something solid to share. Something that helps, something that shifts thinking, something that sparks a decision, something that leaves the listener better than they were before they heard you. That kind of speech requires thought. You do not wing it. You do not talk just because it is your turn. You speak when you have something that matters, and when you do, you deliver it with strength. Your voice is your signature. People will not always remember every sentence you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. They will remember if you made them stop. They will remember if you gave them a standard. They will remember if your words helped them break out of delay, confusion, or fear. That is what being remembered is about. It is not about entertaining. It is about elevating. Speaking to be remembered starts with being clear about what you believe. People remember conviction. They remember certainty. If you are unsure, your message will fade. But if you speak from what you live, from what you know, from what shaped you, it sticks. You do not need to speak louder. You need to speak real. That is what cuts through the noise. You do not need perfect sentences to make impact. You need truth, raw, tested, real truth. You need a message that is simple but strong. Do not complicate what should be clear. Do not try to sound impressive. Say it how people talk. Say it how people think. Say it so they can carry it with them into their day. The easier your message is to repeat, the more powerful it becomes, because people will not just hear it, they will share it, and that is how your voice begins to travel. Your words should live in someone's mind long after the moment has passed. They should echo in their decisions. They should challenge their excuses. They should remind them of what matters. You do not get that kind of result by being passive. You get it by choosing every word on purpose. You get it by respecting your message enough to say it right the first time. You get it by being bold enough to say what others are afraid to say. And the truth is, people are hungry for words that mean something. They are tired of fake inspiration. They are tired of surface-level talk. They are tired of vague advice. They want clarity. They want power. They want someone to say what they have been thinking but could not express. They want someone to speak to their future, not their comfort. That is your role. You fill that gap. You give them the words they did not know they needed. Being heard is about presence. Being remembered is about purpose. You have to know why you are speaking. What do you want them to walk away with? What shift are you trying to create? What decision are you calling them toward? If you are not clear on that, you will speak in circles. You will end up using 10 sentences when one will do. But if your message is sharp, your delivery becomes automatic. You will not have to force impact. It will be built into your words. You do not need a stage to speak with meaning. Every conversation is a chance to be remembered. Every message, every meeting, every moment where people are listening, that is your opportunity. That is where your leadership grows. And it grows fastest when you stop trying to sound good and start trying to speak truth, real truth, no performance, no fluff, just solid, honest communication. Make your sentences clean. Make your message simple. Make your presence strong. That is how you build voice that matters. That is how people start repeating your words to others. Not because you asked them to, but because it stuck, because it hit, because it was real. Do not be the kind of person people forget 5 minutes after the meeting ends. Do not be the one who fills time with empty talk. Be the one who shifts the room with one clear sentence. Be the one who changes the atmosphere, not with emotion, but with authority. Be the one whose message stays in someone's head when they wake up the next morning. That is what leadership communication does. It does not fade. It lives on, and it is not about fancy language. It is about strong delivery. It is about knowing your words have weight and treating them that way. Do not waste your words. Do not repeat yourself. Do not speak in circles. Do not go off track. Stay on message. Make it land. Make it matter. Even in casual conversation, speak like someone who respects their voice. Speak like someone who knows their message could be the thing that lifts another person out of a low place. Speak like someone who has built their beliefs and lives by them. That is what people remember. That is what people trust. Do not try to impress. Try to impact. Impressing fades. Impact lasts. If you speak from your truth, your life, your experience, people will feel it. They will pause. They will think, and they will remember. Every time you speak, you are planting seeds. Some grow fast, some grow slow, but they grow. If the message was real, so stop trying to say more. Start saying what matters. Say it clean, say it strong, and then say no more. Let it echo, let it settle, let it live. That is how you speak to be remembered. That is how your voice becomes something people hold on to. That is how you lead, not with noise, but with words that last. Chapter 10. Train your voice daily until it leads naturally. That is the discipline most people overlook. They want to sound strong when it matters, but they have not practiced in the quiet. They want to lead with authority, but they have not built the habit of speaking with intention. If you want your voice to guide others, to influence, to create impact, you have to train it like a skill, not sometimes, not when it is convenient, every single day. Because leadership does not show up out of nowhere. It is built through repetition. You do not become powerful by accident. You become powerful on purpose. Your voice is a tool. The more you sharpen it, the more precise it becomes. The more you use it with awareness, the more it adapts to your intention. But if you speak without discipline, your voice loses structure. It becomes reactive. It gets shaped by emotion instead of clarity. That is why the work happens in the daily conversations, the regular moments when no one's watching. When it is just you and your reflection, when you are explaining your thoughts, speaking up, correcting something, guiding someone, or simply holding your tone steady. That is the training. That is where the strength is built. If your voice only sounds firm when you are calm, but falls apart When things get uncomfortable, they know you have not trained it enough. If your message is only clear when there is no pressure, but turns into rambling when you are questioned, then it has not been tested enough. Leading with your voice means you have developed it to a point where it holds up in any room, under any pressure, around any person. That does not come from theory. That comes from showing up daily and doing the work to improve how you speak, how you deliver, and how you connect. Start by being intentional every time you talk. Be aware of how you sound. Are you speaking too fast? Are you using filler words? Is your tone matching your message? Are your sentences clean? It is not about being perfect. It is about becoming aware. Awareness is what leads to growth. And the more you notice, the more you improve. Speak like it matters, even when it is casual. Speak like you are leading, even when it is one person. Speak like someone who owns their voice, not someone hoping it lands well. You do not need a stage to train your voice. You need discipline. You need consistency. Practice during your phone calls. Practice while giving feedback. Practice when making requests. Say what you mean. Speak with purpose. Cut the excess. Stay present in your tone. That is the grind most people avoid. They wait for the big moment, the big opportunity, thinking that somehow they will rise to the occasion. But if you have not trained, the pressure will expose you. It will not bring out your best. It will reveal your gaps, and you cannot fix those in the moment. You fix them ahead of time when nobody's watching. When you are building strength behind the scenes, your voice is a reflection of your thinking. If your thinking is clear, your words will follow. That is why training your voice also means training your mind. Get used to thinking in simple, strong statements. Train your thoughts to focus. Eliminate the clutter. Discipline your internal language, so your external communication becomes sharper. That way, when it is time to speak, you are not building clarity on a spot. It is already there. You are simply letting it out. You also have to get comfortable with silence. Part of training your voice is learning when not to speak. The pauses matter. The stillness between your words carries presence. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill the gap. But if you train your voice, you understand that silence is part of your strength. It gives your words time to breathe. It lets your message settle. It shows you are in control, not just of what you say, but of when you say it. You can train tone, just like you train physical posture. Speak with a grounded tone. Not too high, not too soft. Just steady. You are not trying to sound like someone else. You are finding your real voice, the one that holds authority without needing to raise volume. The one that speaks directly, without hesitation. You develop that through practice, through repetition, through saying things out loud, until your voice learns what strength feels like. It is not just about what you say, it is how you say it. Your delivery matters. If your voice shakes, people notice. If your words drag, people disengage. If your tone sounds unsure, they question your message. But if your voice is trained, it becomes effortless. It becomes natural. People do not even notice you are leading. They just follow because you have built a rhythm a tone, a presence that guides without demanding. Training your voice also builds confidence, not fake confidence, but earned confidence, the kind that comes from repetition. You know what you sound like. You know how to stay calm under pressure. You know how to make your point without getting lost. That self-trust shows up in your speech and people feel it. They may not know exactly why they listen to you. They just know they do because your voice tells them they can. There will be days you do not feel strong, days when you are tired, days when you are unsure. That is when your training carries you. That is when the habits you built kick in. You do not have to fake strength. You have already practiced it. You have spoken with clarity when you did not feel like it. You have held your tone when it would have been easier to fold. That is the power of training. It builds consistency. So, your leadership does not depend on your mood. It depends on your preparation. You cannot build a strong voice by avoiding hard conversations. You build it by walking into them, not with arrogance, with intention, with composure. You do not raise your voice to get attention. You raise your standard. And when you speak, that standard comes through. People hear the difference. They hear the work behind your tone. They hear the thought behind your message. They hear the truth behind your delivery. That is what makes your voice lead. When you train your voice every day, you stop trying to lead. You just lead. It becomes part of who you are. You do not think about tone. You live in it. You do not think about structure. It flows naturally. You do not second-guess your words. You speak from alignment. That is the goal. Not to impress, not to perform, but to be so practiced, so grounded, so consistent that leadership shows up without effort. And do not forget, your voice is part of your character. The way you speak reflects what you have built internally. If your words are honest, your tone will be steady. If your message is true, your delivery will be strong. If your purpose is real, your presence will follow. But all of it must be trained. No shortcuts, no pretending, just daily work, daily progress, daily clarity, one sentence at a time, one conversation at a time, one adjustment at a time. That is how your voice grows. That is how your presence deepens. That is how your leadership becomes undeniable. Not because you said the most, but because you trained the most, because you respected your voice enough to build it every day until one day you speak and people follow, not because they were told to, because they wanted to, because your voice did not push, it pulled, because it did not perform, it guided, because it did not shake, it led. And that is when your voice becomes more than words. It becomes an influence. It becomes power. It becomes leadership. Natural, strong,